Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, showing the human stories behind indie game development. Forgive my voice, I've got a little bit of a cold today, but I'm not going to steal too much time from you. This is a footnote number 8 as bonus episode. It's been a while since I did one of these, and usually I always invite someone special from the gaming community or the indie game development community who doesn't necessarily have to do with game development in itself. So for this one, I've invited Kaylee, also known as the Gaming Anthropologist online, especially on Threads. Right now she's very active, and we're going to talk about anthropology, or gaming as a modern campfire, the modern hearth, so to speak. I love anthropology. I'm a big fan, big enthusiast, so this is going to be a good one, and can't wait to hear what you think about it. Before we get into the episode, I want to shout out, as usual, to my amazing patrons who are Zagini, Fishmandev, and Pelik. Thank you guys so much for your support every month. And listeners, this is a listener-supported show, so if you want to also support the Indie Diarist, you can go to patreon.com/the Indie Diarist, or check out the links in the description to find all my amazing tiers. All right, hello everybody. Wow, that was a good start. Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast. This is a bonus episode. Actually, it's footnote number 9, I believe. And for this one, I wanted to do something special. Some of you guys who, spend time in the Discord server and we all spend time together, you know that I'm a bit of a fan of history and anthropology and all that stuff. A lot of stuff, really. Ancient myths especially, and all of that. And some time ago, I was just playing around with Threads, and I found Kaylee, who's now here with me, who goes by the name of the Gaming Anthropologist on Threads. So you can find her that way, but also on other platforms, I suppose. But Kaylee, please tell us a few things about yourself, what you do, where you're based, and if you're working on anything exciting right now.
Well, I currently live in Florida, which is a very exciting place currently. Anyway,
yeah.
Especially for someone who studies, social situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's super fun right now. I'm super stressed. But I'm based in Florida. I'm actually originally from California. I grew up across the street from Disney and the Anaheim Convention Center, where the conventions always happen and everything. And so as you know, I'm like really used to seeing all of this stuff happen. I didn't start out in anthropology. I wanted, this sounds ridiculous when you look at like my life now, but I was actually a geology major. I wanted to go into archaeology. I wanted to sort of like do the digging and do the soil and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then that didn't happen. So I ended up having to get an anthropology degree, which I love. I'm not saying that was like my pity degree. Like I actually really love it. And I made the horrendous mistake of thinking, I'm just gonna like study politics. I became so depressed.
Yeah, I
bet. I was just like, you know what? No, I can't do this. I have to give myself something to live for. Gaming has always been one of my survival mechanisms, and as an anthropologist, like gaming isn't really like my main focus. My main focus is storytelling and how it creates community. And when you look at gaming, what better modern example do we have of community creation through storytelling, right? I mean, I'm all nerdy about it. I get super excited, like, it harkens back to our ancestors and our DNA and how culture is created. And oh gosh, it gives me goosebumps. People think that I'm weird, but that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah.
I know that when we were talking before this, I was giving you the allegory of sitting in front of the fire and having your elders tell you the stories and watching the flames as these ideas manifest. And you're sitting in front of a screen which is a fire symbolism of fire, and you're being told this story, and you're becoming a part of the story. And if you're playing like an MMO multiplayer game, you're sharing this insert hallucination with your friends. You're creating a myth with each other, right? You're becoming heroes. You're learning what you value. You're sharing these things together. And community is about safety. It is about being yourself. It is about being able to rely on someone else when you are in trouble. It is about helping other people when they need you. And yeah, that's a game. That's definitely a game. So it has all of these elements. And, as a person who like grew up with Joseph Campbell and the hero myth and all of that, like my little brain whenever there's a game involved, of course, it goes all the way to those, the hero's journey and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think you introduced the concept of the episode really well. So this episode, well, the title is The Modern Hearth, Gaming as a Campfire Gathering, and it was inspired by that thing that you said. So like games as screens, as that campfire, the crackling fire that around which we all gather to just get these stories from someone else these days. But I think we can start by setting the stage a little bit, because I don't think not everyone who's listening to this episode will be necessarily familiar with anthropology and what it is. So what let's say of course it's a whole discipline, so you can be as synthetic as you can be, not as synthetic, as concise as you can be. But what is anthropology, and what role do you think play has in anthropology as a discipline? Anthropology, just the word itself, is the study of man, the study of people, study of culture. So if you look at the beginnings of anthropology, which was super racist, we don't talk about that anymore.
Yeah, we don't.
We have moved to a more accepting and supportive type of research method that keeps people's business to themselves. Like we're just guests, and then we leave, right? There are so many different ways that you can use the field, the research, of anthropology. There's biological, there's cultural, there's physical, the just everywhere. Like there's just, you can take anything that is related to human practice, human culture, and turn that into an anthropological black hole of research, right? So I think the weirdest one that I ever saw was there was somebody that wrote a paper on gamification, which was it gamification or was it game theory? I think it was game theory. And then they studied squirrels. They studied squirrels for game theory, and they like watched squirrels for a long time, taught them how to do something, and then they translated that into economics.
Okay, so from squirrels
human economics, from squirrels to economics, right? So it's a lot of research. It's a lot of concrete scientific fact and data, but it's also a little bit of like philosophy, because human beings aren't, for a lack of a better term, black and white. When it comes to their minds, when it comes to our way of thinking, our way of interacting, we are very spiritual. And that does not necessarily mean religious. You can go outside and sit under a tree and feel connected to the earth and not, think that anything greater exists out in the heavens. We just belong to the earth. And that is a very spiritual practice. And people are so complicated that the word complicated doesn't even cover it. Every single person lives in their own universe. So you and I are sharing a moment right now. But I'm experiencing it in a different way than you're experiencing it. Right?
It's about perception, isn't it?
It's about perception, absolutely. And that's another thing with video games. If you look at the people that play Call of Duty, and you look at the people that play, I don't know, Elder Scrolls Online, their perception
Yeah.
are
Or
very
Stardew Valley, maybe.
Oh yes, no, Stardew Valley, absolutely. One of them is like, oh, it's about cozy games and feeling good and sharing your experiences and making a community, and the other one is like, stab him in the eyeball.
Yes, the eyeball.
They're sharing in the same experience. They might be narratively different, but it is the same thing, but they have two very different mindsets.
Yeah. And that's what I think makes it interesting when someone who comes from another type of experience or game or favorite genre approaches another genre entirely. Personally, I see myself as someone who plays all of the different, like a lot of different genres. The only one that I don't really touch is racing games and sports games because I just don't find them fun. But at the same time...
My husband loves racing games, and I can't stand.
I like them, but it's just I don't actively go out to seek them and play them. That is the thing. I can enjoy them, but it depends. It largely depends on the game and such. But it's always interesting to see how different people approach different genres, and I guess that again is part of the your universe and your bubble, and also your perception around things. But I feel like a good way to start this conversation around the modern hearth, and we are slowly getting there. We already hinted at a few things. It's those fireside memories, as I have it in the outline that we discussed together.
Yeah.
So there's always I have very, very vivid memories of me playing games with someone else, maybe next to I don't know, a partner, or maybe next to a family member, maybe next to someone who introduced me to games for the first time. So, like, what are your personal stories? What are personal memories of video games acting as that kind of campfire? Like, what do you remember?
Oh my goodness, mine is really depressing.
Oh no, it's fine.
I was raised by my grandparents, who were very, very religious, and they were taken in by the Satanic Panic, and Canada's gift to the U.S. And I actually went on this. Just a side note, I went on this huge thing when I started doing anthropology, and I studied the Satanic Panic, and deep dive, and that's how I discovered D&D.
Oh, okay. Right.
I was like, oh, the Satanist game, I'll do that. That sounds cool.
Which is even more of a crackling campfire D&D.
Yeah, no, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I love the irony of it all. But to go back to my traumatic childhood. So basically, I wasn't allowed to play any kind of video game. Like we had like a little center where we lived, where it had like the laundromat and like a little clubhouse and like some video game area. I wasn't allowed because it was satanic, and the bad people were going to come and steal my soul in the middle of the night, and I was going to become, I'm not going to continue that anyway. The hysteria of Cuban grandparents, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Yeah.
If you know, you know. So I grew up very... They didn't like science fiction. They didn't like fantasy. They didn't like... So all of the things that I loved as a child. I was only allowed to read Narnia. Like, because it was Christian.
Yeah.
Lord, whatever. And I became an adult, and I think that at some point my grandmother was like, maybe we've taken this too far. And she started giving me Tomb Raider games that she bought at like the corner store, the ones that got stolen. And put on like random CDs. So
all right, I get that.
Yeah, so I'm playing like these outdated Tomb Raider games on my laptop. While I'm supposed to be doing my homework. And she's like, "Don't let your abuelo see it." And I got a job at Disneyland. That was actually my first job.
Okay.
And this game came out. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, it's one of my favorite games ever. Of course I know it.
And my grandmother was like, okay, when she turns 21, we're going to buy her a PlayStation.
Okay.
And they had no idea how to do that, so they just gave me a check and they were like, take this money.
Don't use it on drugs.
Don't give it to the Satanist cult. Just go get the... And I was like, okay, cool, this is enough for the machine, but I need the money for the game.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, how much is the game? And so this was like not my legitimate first game, but my like first like allowed game by my family. It's
Okay,
the accepted
first
game.
endorsed. Yeah. Okay.
And I was so blown away. The colors, the storytelling.
Yeah, was it the first Kingdom Hearts?
It was the first one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And,
it's so Fable-like, the first Kingdom Hearts.
No, it's
I love
a beautiful
it.
game. It was a beautiful game. I was in love, and I mean, I'm working with the characters in the game at my real job, so it was just kind of like and then my grandmother got cancer.
Oh, okay.
And it was one of the worst experiences, like the worst periods of my entire life. And when she passed away, the last thing that she gave me was the second game.
Oh.
And yeah.
The second Kingdom Hearts, or
the second Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, okay.
And we had a trailer. We hooked it up to I guess they call it a caravan.
Yeah.
A home, and we hooked it up to a truck. And every time my grandfather would stop, he would hook the electricity up, and I would go into my room, and I'd turn the thing on, and I would just play it. And I would just play it. And it was the last thing she gave me. And I would turn it on and just let the music play.
So that dearly beloved, yeah.
So that I could go to sleep. Because it was like the only thing that helped me with my stress.
And you know, the second Kingdom Hearts is also about, you know, lost memories and reconnecting and all that. So
I cried my way through that game.
Yeah, of
course.
And
you know, like my relationship with my grandparents wasn't like amazingly stellar, as you could probably tell. But there was a lot of like heartfelt intention behind the things that they did, and you can understand why they did the things that they did while also being traumatized by them. And you know, the sincerity I felt came through ironically with that second game so much, and it was just the comfort for me. You know, and that's my sad story.
The warmth, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have nearly as beautiful of a story as you. I started playing games when I was way too young maybe to start playing. I think it was about 5 or something like that. And I had I had a PS1. I was born in '95, which was I think a year after the PS1, the original PS1 came out. And I got that console a few years later because I saw it in my uncle's. And then I got a PS2, then I got a PS3, and so on. I remember the one thing that I remember is that I got Vice City when I was 8. So I mean, that was probably a little early. But my uncle introduced me to, and actually, now that you make me think about it, it was my uncle, but I think it was my grandma as well. Because at some point I remember there was. I've never been able to find it again, and I don't know where it is. It might be lost forever. It was like a console, but it was one of those rip-off consoles that you get off some like random corner shops again. That were rip-offs of real consoles, and this one was in black and white. I think the background was black and the foreground was white, and it was in pixels.
It sounds like a DOS game.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like a DOS game, but I don't know what it was, and it had a lot of mini games, and you were just guiding these characters in these mini games, and you're just removing these characters on the foreground, and that was the first console that I ever had. If it can be called a console. And that was my grandma getting it from some weird like street market or something.
That's awesome.
Just recently, at the end of last month, I lost my grandma as well, which was this grandma, the only grandma that I lost so far. All the other grandparents are still alive. So now it's interesting that I find myself talking about this story in this context, but it was a moment of connection, not necessarily with my grandma, but with something else that captivated me so much, And then it led me to learning about all the other games. But actually, the real culprit of me getting into video games is my uncle, my dad's brother, who introduced me to the PS1. He showed me a lot of games like Final Fantasy VII, which was so colorful at the time. And I didn't understand the word because it was only in English in Italy and wasn't localized. And I didn't know English at the time.
I still haven't played it. Played it. I've played maybe like 10 minutes of the remake.
Oh, yeah. The remake is very well done. It has some interesting additions, I would say. But yeah, the original is a classic. And I still love it to this day. And then I remember some, those campfire moments with maybe my dad when we were playing Crash Team Racing together. Or with my sister when I showed her Uncharted. And I showed her The Last of Us, and she loved The Last of Us. I think The Last of Us was, maybe Kingdom Hearts was one of the first games that she ever played from beginning to end. The Last of Us was definitely one of the first ones. And then there was To the Moon, which we played together. I played it first, and then I showed it to her. Which is a beautiful indie game. I do recommend that you look into it if you haven't heard of it. But all of these moments, they kind of created those bonds for me, and they strengthened my relation with some people around my life thanks to gaming. And I know so many other people who feel the same way. Maybe they played a game with their brother. Maybe they played games with their sister. Maybe they were introduced to games by their parents. Even some of the developers that I talk to, they tell me a lot of interesting stories, a lot of great stories. Some of the developers that I featured on the show, one of them specifically, I still remember, I think it was from December last year, he told me, or maybe December the first year of the show, he told me that he was developing a game just so he could play it. Yes, because he wanted to pay the bills with it, but just so he could play it with his wife. Because his wife loved games, and he wanted to share that experience with her. And I'm like, wow, that is so sweet. And games do that. They got me closer to my sister when we were both teenagers, and we didn't have a better way of communicating to each other than just bonding over games. And they just make that moment of community so much more special, maybe even more so than films. And I guess that's why we're here talking about it today. I do want to go back to one point that you made about community. Which is a big point of anthropology, of course, and as it's in the title of this episode, I would say, gaming as a campfire gathering, which in itself is an image of community. Oh, yeah. So the games can be seen as some sort of like communal ritual. They're similar to ancient campfire storytelling, and I like the idea of, in ancient times there were these groups of humans gathering around the fire, and one of them maybe was imparting wisdom to others or telling stories and such. And now these days, we get it from online media, we get it from the TV, we get it from books, of course, but we get it from games as well. From the perspective of an anthropologist, how important would you say is play for that instinct of human community? And what role does it play in it?
So as a species, play is very important to our brains. To how we communicate, to how our brains develop, and play is included in a lot of things you don't even realize. I don't know what the tradition is where you are, but for us, Easter, you color the eggs, you hide them.
Yeah, well, here in London we buy them and then we hide them around. But that's
I mean,
buy chocolate eggs.
Specifically for us, we get the real eggs. We boil them. Like it's a whole ritual, right?
Yeah.
There's different ways of dyeing them. There's like families have traditions. You can dye them with natural dyes. You can dye them with dyes from the store. You can dye them with flowers. You can dye, all kinds of artistic things. You do the kids. You get the kids around. It's a family event. You put the glitter on it. You put the whatever. You get the crayons out. Whatever. And it's a lot of ritualistic things. Like, oh, these are the colors that represent spring. These are the I mean, and it also depends on like the family and like what religious background. Obviously, Jewish people don't do this.
I can imagine these days there's a lot of people that paint their eggs with the American flag. But
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so ashamed.
Yeah, but you don't do it for the reason that I was thinking about.
I've never done that. I swear to God, I've never done that. I'm so sorry. That like for us, it was always like putting like nature and vegetation, and it was a celebration about spring and flowers and the world awakening after the frost and all that other stuff. So you go and you do this ritual of boiling the eggs, coloring the eggs, and then you like go out. The parents go out and you hide them out in the garden with where spring appears, and then the kids put on their ritual garb, and they get their baskets that they've decorated themselves.
I've seen this in some movies,
right?
Definitely.
And you go out and you get the eggs, and whoever gets the most eggs wins a prize. They get the luck. You know what I mean?
That's
and again, it's different per families, but this was what my family did, right? So it was always this ritual idea of like spring is here, we're celebrating the birth of the world, and then they'd take the eggs because no kids wanted to eat the eggs, and they'd make egg salad out of it. Which I like egg salad, but the whole idea is a ritual, a game, and a concept of renewal and regrowth, right? And it's literally just, here's some eggs, go find them.
Yeah.
And it's all about play. And it's also an initiation, because you see the 2-year-olds out there, like, unable to really walk, falling over, but, oh, look, we found the egg, oh, it's yay, And you're teaching the child, like, oh, this is what we do. This is how we celebrate this thing. And it doesn't matter, like, it matters what religion you belong to. But if you're more agnostic, it doesn't really symbolize anything religious. But it is definitely something very pagan.
Oh yeah, well,
and a lot of those practices come from those things, right? But you also have like taking your kid to work, or working on your car. Oh, get me this, get me that. Oh, this thing works like this. Oh, okay, how quickly can you do this compared to daddy or mommy, whatever. And teaching your kids how to do stuff, how to cook, how to clean, how to pick up after themselves, always involves some sort of game. How many toys can you pick up while mommy counts to 10?
Yeah.
You
give them some constraints, and you give them a goal, and
it's all about
possibly
that.
a reward at the end.
Yeah, it's all. If you pick your toys up in 10 minutes, we'll go to the park. So 10 minutes. How much?
Exactly.
How many can I get? I did it. We're going to the park. Like, that's a game. That's gamification. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And people don't realize this is how our brains work. This is how our brains work. We lose a lot of it when we grow up, when we become adults, because people think that we don't need fun. Yeah. And that's actually
definitely speaking to the wrong audience there, because I feel like my
listeners
all need fun.
We need a sense of joy and satisfaction when it comes to living in an adult space, because if we lose that sense of wonder and happiness and excitement to get something done and that leads to bad mental health, bad emotions, and I mean, we see this, there's a really bad part of the gaming community where all of these emotions go in and then bad things happen, and that is part of what I have to look out too, because looking at human beings through the lens of anthropology makes me so hopeful. Because people are beautiful. People are amazing. They are capable of the most breathtaking things, just amazing, beautiful, breathtaking, lovely things, especially within a community space.
It's great that you say that, because I recently interviewed someone from Free Lives, who's a studio published by Devolver Digital, and the episode will come out after this one, actually. Evan Greenwood, and he's a big advocate for games as a product of collective intelligence, people coming together and being more than the sum of their parts, creating something going beyond their intelligence level just because they're a good team and they made something incredible. And games are a part of that, a part of what you say. They are just something beautiful.
We lose so much when we become individualistic as a society, because as human beings, our natural environment is collective. It is community. It is being able to reach out and find someone to hold on to when we need it. That whole concept of it takes a village to raise a child, that is who we are as a species, right? It doesn't mean that you give birth and then you're not a parent anymore. It means that you have other people to love your child and you through the hard times. Community literally is just about survival. Going through hard, the fires in California, community. The earthquakes, community. The tsunamis, community. The only reason why these places heal and come back is because people gather around the tragedy. But can you imagine the amazing thing we could create if we gathered around joy?
Oh yeah, of course.
Right? Instead of just keeping those moments for when something bad happens, just do it all the time. Do it when someone's, graduating school or
totally.
Whatever, like having a good, just everyone coming together and just being amazing.
Yeah, and that works possibly because we are hardwired that way, because biologically we're a very vulnerable species. Like we don't have big claws, we don't have big teeth. We're just very fragile. We've learned
persistent.
to be or persistent.
We are persistent.
We are persistent, and we're persistent, and that's what became our biggest weapon, like our determination, our resilience.
Yeah.
And that's something that fiction talks about all the time, like the resilience of humans and how we are always able to bounce back. And I think that's a very interesting thing, that community became a survival mechanism that helps us go through those hard times. And if we bring it back to games, I think there's a question that I may be putting you a little bit on the spot here, but let's see, you might be able to answer it. Okay. So when I think about game design, I think about all of the things that we talked about. We think about a setting, we think about constraints, and we think about a reward potentially. In itself, play isn't necessarily the most outcome-oriented thing. It isn't necessarily something that gives us food, unless it is offered as part of the reward. It isn't necessarily something that gives us sustenance, but still, it's something that we love all the same. Where do you think that mechanism comes from? Is it just about the spirit of community? What is it that we like so much about play that we just can't help but do it?
Joy, probably. Play in itself is the reward. Anything. I mean, it's capitalistic hellscape that we live in. Anything that gives you endorphins.
Yeah, of course.
We're out here with people having like 80 sets of dice for one D&D campaign. Yeah.
I just recently got into mechanical keyboards. Let me tell you, it's a deep rabbit hole. So, yeah.
I'm resisting with everything in me. But there is something very special about sharing joy. You can have joy on your own, doing things that you love, feeling good about yourself, giving yourself rewards for things that you've done. But when you've shared that, especially when you're caring about someone else, in this communal space, caring for someone, sharing joy with someone, it is the root of who we are and where that survival mechanism comes from. Because fundamentally, it's not about the survival of me. I can't do anything by myself. Oh, okay. Fallout happens. The nukes drop. I'm the only one that survives. I walk around this earth lonely, alone, nobody to talk to.
You're probably not going to last long.
I have all of the resources that I want. I can walk into a bank and grab a handful of money. Who am I going to spend it on?
Yeah, what are you going to use it for?
What am I going to do? All the food is there. I can live until I'm 120 years old, and I will not have anyone to speak to or share my life with or say goodnight to or go to bed with, or I won't be able to have kids and keep my people going, my race, my who we are.
I suppose in a context like that, you would probably spend the rest of your life trying to find other humans, even though there may not be anyone.
You're sitting there hoping the monkeys learn how to how to communicate. Because we are a gregarious animal. We need interaction, or we start going crazy. Even people that don't like people, they're still out there yelling at the kids on their lawn and complaining because Samantha put that flag over there, and it's an eyesore to the community. If she really didn't like people, she'd just be inside, quiet.
Still a form of interaction, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still a form of interaction. And then you have the trolls online. They're like, oh, get better, oh, get good, dweeb, whatever. But they're still looking for that interaction. They're still looking for that conversation. Even if it means nothing, even if their
if it means
intent,
nothing but trolling and just getting a negative reaction out of people.
Even if their intent is to just ruin your day, that might be the only conversation they've had. That might be the only interaction that they've had, and they're mad and sad and angry and depressed because no one will talk to them, so they will get a reaction out of you no matter how they will do it, and empathy is a big deal when it comes to things like human interaction. And as long as we live in a world where we're isolationist, empathy is going to be that thing that people tell us we don't need, and that's the crux of the problem.
Yeah, and I feel like we're starting to see it now in certain parts of the world at the moment. But let's not go there, because this could.
We don't need to talk about that right now.
We don't need to talk about that right now. But there is one very important point that you made at some point while we were talking, but also during this episode already, which is storytelling as a survival mechanism. It's storytelling as a way to develop your survival instinct. You mentioned the hero's journey. You mentioned ancient myths and learning from old stories. So first of all, I am a writer, so I know what you're talking about, but people might not know what the hero's journey is, and the myth of the hero's myth is. Do you want to introduce people to this beautiful little framework that might help them think about stories in the future?
Okay, so essentially the monomyth. Let me get all classical education here. The monomyth was an idea developed by Joseph Campbell, who was I don't know what the proper term is, mythologist. He studied and taught mythology and philosophy, and he was just like the coolest man ever. He looked at the world and he looked at the stories that cultures tell, and he saw survival. He saw values being taught to communities, to kids. He saw psychology. He saw the symbolism behind the religious ideas was about being a better person and being like the best version of yourself. Right? So he got rid of all of this idea of listening to other people that have opinions about how you should be religious, and then just said, don't listen to other people. Look at the stories that our ancestors have given us, and then see what they tell you and see how you respond to them. And I'm like 11 years old watching his talks on PBS, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is amazing. Yeah, my religious grandparents really loved that. Anyway, it really inspired me, and it was one of the reasons why I went into the social sciences. We have this ability to look at culture and learn who we are through the lessons that are given to us from the people that came before us. The monomyth is the idea that all of us, no matter where we come from, all of our myths and our religious doctrine hold the same values and ideas and teach the same lessons, but we're so busy fighting over who's right that we're blinded to the fact that we're all kind of right. This isn't something that we should be fighting over. This is something that we should embrace.
So that's one of the things that are incredibly fascinating about Campbell's work, but also, I think then someone, took his work and expanded it and such, and at some point we ended up with the concept that all stories pretty much share a very common thread.
Yeah, what
so
is
they
it?
Go from,
there's only 7 stories that
there's like only 7 types of stories, and if you think about it, and if you think about it, it is kind of true. Although the some blend them, some blend this and that, but there's just so much you can do with the setup, a cast of characters, some conflict, and then a resolution. And usually there's always some change involved. So when it comes to a hero's journey, if game designers out there are interested to know what it is, I do recommend that you check it out and you look it up. But in a nutshell, it's about, as Kaylee's saying here, there are just a set amount of stories that pretty much are reused and re-elaborated, just with different elements here and there, different details. The details change, but the underlying red thread remains the same. There is one specifically that that applies to a lot of fables and fairy tales, which goes from the setup to the resolution, and it is the hero's journey. So starting with the setup, the hero goes through a call to I would say a call to duty or something like that. I don't remember.
A call to adventure.
Call to adventure. Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very D&D. It's extremely D&D.
It's extremely D&D, and there's it's very fantasy. If you look at it, it's like it's exactly how the Lord of the Rings is structured. There's the refusal of the call. There's the mentor, which is Gandalf, and then there's the whole journey, and then it just ends in a certain way. But it's a very, very fascinating framework. Sorry,
I will tell you that I did write a paper about The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I used the hero's journey.
Interesting. I do want to read it now.
Very apt. Even like just watch the movie. Like you see every single step for the hero's journey. Like he doesn't want to leave his house. His house is gonna get torn down. No. And then he's running around. Then there's a big spaceship and things are blowing up. And he's like, but they're gonna knock my house down. And then his friend has to push him down so that he looks up. And it's that moment of clarity, like, oh, something else is happening. Yeah. My house doesn't matter anymore. It's that entire concept, and my professor really loved it.
Yeah, that's nice. It's a nice way to see it, but yeah, and it shows that even the story that seemed the most random or the most unstructured, they still have something underneath. Even something as bonkers as Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a beautiful movie. I love it, but it still has a character development journey in there. It still has a structure. The formula is still there, even though it doesn't look like it. It's just very creatively told, but it's still there. But there's something else about stories that and storytelling as survival instinct, which is that concept of passing on wisdom in modern times through video games, and that kind of screens as a campfire. Like games. Maybe one day, back in the day, in the days of Pong, they weren't exactly this way. But now games tell you about ethics, survival, community, family. God of War, the new reboot, tells you a lot about family in its own way. So this concept of stories as a way to learn to survive is fascinating to me. What is your view on this way of learning to survive through stories? Because I know that we talked about it quite a bit when we had our first chat.
It depends. Okay, there's so many ways I can approach this. So like, you take a myth, and there's so many myths. I don't even want to pick one. The myth of Medusa.
Perfect. Yeah.
And she was punished because of what was done to her, or she was given a gift to keep it from happening again. It depends on who's telling the story, where the story is, being told, who experienced like a similar thing. Lore Olympus. So we have this amazing webcomic that's retelling this entire story of all of these myths. And it's more of a modern retelling, so we have characters that we recognize, events that we definitely recognize, and then the way that they react to it is more modern than it is I'm gonna turn you into a monster because you defiled my temple by somebody else doing something you didn't want to you. That's that idea of a lack of empathy. Like, but who decided the goddess was bad? Who decided the goddess wasn't like, here's something that will help you. I'm sorry this happened. It's the only thing I can do. When you look back on history, you look back on the tradition of oral storytelling, you can see that things change over time. And as we learn and change as a society, a lot of these stories have changed along with the teller. Right? They've become more empathetic. They've become more caring. They've attempted to teach their children.
It's the reason why we don't see a Dante's Inferno today, because there's just no Dante to tell that story.
I mean, we might eventually at some point, but and even with like certain games, I know that within like certain Final Fantasy games, they have had to remove some offensive verbiage because that is no longer acceptable, and we as a community, as a culture, as a worldwide entity, have moved on and are doing better now. So like the little poems that we tell our kids, like the little snakes or the plants outside, like don't touch them if they're a certain color or whatever. And the same thing with like learning a trade or learning a business or learning how to handle other people. These stories give you an outlook and they give you consequences, right? So Snow White, what happened to her mom? To her stepmom? They put her in shoes made of metal and then set them on fire and made her dance. Don't be mean to your stepchildren.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. And it's
right?
The stories teach you those morals and such. And I think you have a point there. Like the fiction is everywhere around us. It was I think I read it in a book somewhere, but even companies are fiction. Like concept of a company is fiction. It unites people under a common banner, but it's just a name. It's just a story that the company tells for the people that work for it. And it's something that I find super interesting. What I think can make my audience feel a little bit better about what they're doing when it comes to game design, when it comes to playing games and all of that. If you think you're doing a game that someone else has already done, it is probably true, but you can still make it unique and make it yours. So that is,
write the story that you want to write. Because it doesn't matter if someone else has had the same concept as you, as long as you're not like blatantly ripping them off. No one has told the story the way you tell it. And it's important to have a unique voice.
How many games have tried a time loop in the past, and how many did they do it as well as Outer Wilds or Majora's Mask? Not many. Well, I think we are near the end, Kaylee, actually. We've covered so many things and so many interesting topics. I loved this episode as a history nerd. I really, really loved it. I think we can, since you're someone who studies archaeology and you're specialized in that, I think we can just share some resources with the listeners who are interested in looking into more. So from your perspective, as someone who knows anthropology and such, you've already mentioned a game to me that you think is very anthropologically accurate, which is South of Midnight, at least from the presentation. It's not out yet, as I understand it.
I've been seeing a few reviews for it, and it looks, I'm excited. It looks amazing.
Are there other games that you feel capture the anthropological spirit very well? For me, Outer Wilds is definitely one, but I've got others here. Yeah.
Oh no, Outer Wilds amazing. Anything. I mean, I love Fallout.
Yes.
You could probably.
Yeah, the
I have.
Nuka-Cola. For the listeners at home, Kaylee is wearing a Fallout 76,
a Nuka-Cola girl T-shirt and a Fallout 76 hoodie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I anything that has a kind of lore that I mean, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. Totally.
Dragon Age.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really understands this, but when you look at Dragon Age, like the areas are based off of existing cultures.
Okay.
So Rome, Italy. You could go into a deep dive on like the analysis of like what they represent and how the cultures are represented, and like, I'm obsessed. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
And definitely like Final Fantasy. We can't leave that out. That's a crazy. All of the philosophy and all of the stuff in there it's so delicious. And you never know what you're gonna find. And the monsters are based off of things, and
And there's a huge effort of world building every single time when it comes to Final Fantasy. They create worlds pretty much from scratch. Lately, they've been focusing on the new like historical fiction / political intrigue trope and world. But if you go back to Final Fantasy VII, you've got like a dystopian world. You've got the Shinra Corporation just sucking life off the planet. Final Fantasy IX, you've got medieval society and everything that has to do with that. It's just so fascinating. So it's good that you mentioned that one, because my examples that were going to be a little bit different, more in the indie space, I would say. So, for example, Dwarf Fortress, for player-driven narrative. I haven't personally played it, but I have seen a lot of videos, I've read a lot of reviews, and every time you go onto the Dwarf Fortress Steam page, all you read in the reviews are stories, and I think that is incredible. There's people just saying, "Oh, this dwarf did that. Oh, I had this happen, and then there was a flood," and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm not buying this game because otherwise I'm gonna pour hundreds of hours into it." There's Journey, who a lot of people probably played, as an exploration of self, that kind of the whole journey that you make throughout the game, which is just a very contemplative and solitary journey. But actually even there, and we go back to what we talked about at the beginning, you find connection because you can find other people playing the game. And when you find them in that whole overwhelming solitude, you're actually happy to see them. I remember this moment when I was climbing the mountain at the end of the game, and I heard someone calling out, and I'm like, I didn't know. I went into Journey blind many years later, and I didn't know that you could find other players on it. That you could find other players doing the journey with you. I had no idea. And for the whole game, I didn't find anyone until I was on that last mountain, and I heard the calling. I was like, what's that? And I'm like, wait.
It's a person!
Is that a bot? Is that... Because I was confused. I didn't know. Is that... Wait, they look like a human... Like, they're moving like a human being. Are they actually... And then we started climbing the mountain together. And so in that overwhelming solitude and loneliness, I found a person. And that moment of connection was so special to me.
That is absolutely the hero's journey for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that moment. You were never alone.
I was never alone, yeah, and I didn't know. And I didn't know.
Crazy. And
there are other games that I can think about. Firewatch, again, it's about... There are moments of connection with other humans, but for the most part, you're alone in that park, and you feel the loneliness. Yeah. And then there's, of course, the more societal and ethical games like Papers, Please or Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is so incredible and so politically complex. But it does dive into a lot of philosophical and ethical issues, and I think it does it brilliantly. There's Kentucky Route Zero that is even more metaphysical and such. There's so many games out there, and I think it's not a case. It's not by chance that I'm citing a lot of indie games. There's definitely some AAA games out there that do this very well. Final Fantasy is a good example. Dragon Age is a good example.
I think the one that like really resonated with me personally, Far Cry.
Far Cry, yes.
Far Cry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I played a lot of games before I played that game, and my husband was like, "You like this game? Just try it." And oh my goodness, I'm sitting there like, what just happened to my brain?
Yeah.
Okay, and satirical. Okay, yeah. Especially the last one that came out. She's a little sausage. In a wheelchair, little sausage dog.
I didn't play the
wheelchair.
last one, but I have
So
to then.
I think it was 6, right? Far Cry 6 is the last one that came out. It's
the last one I played was Far Cry 3.
Basically on an island, in a Caribbean sort of esque Hispanic kind of Latino island, which is like that's where my family comes from, and there's a dictator, and all of this narrative that I recognize culturally as my own experience, and they're trying to do some sort of like free the people, but then they get stuck in this political intrigue, and I'm just like, how do I get out of this? But then you get, instead of getting people out in that game as your companions, you get animals. So she has a crocodile.
Okay.
That wears t-shirts.
Okay, right.
And then like a little sausage dog, but he's in a wheelchair.
Oh. Cute.
And then you get you have to do all of this stuff to get a rooster, and the rooster is the scariest one because he's like crazy and he will.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, no,
Gives
but
me Hotline Miami vibes.
Yeah,
with the masks. Yeah.
It was. I'm like the political intrigue. Everyone's dying. She's trying to save this kid. The president is crazy, and all of this stuff. And I'm like, is my sausage dog okay?
Well, that's interesting. Like, you related with the sausage dog more than the rest.
My baby! My little baby! Yeah,
but yeah.
No, but like, sometimes it catches you off guard. And you're like, oh, I don't know, this looks weird. I'm not like into Tropico games or whatever. And then suddenly it was like, oh my god, I'm crying.
Yeah.
You just don't know. You don't know. You gotta try it. You gotta try everything. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But you might get surprised. And it might ruin your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then on this note, I think we can close with actually any sources from you as a researcher to learn more about anthropology, maybe specifically for game design. I know that you linked some sources to me, which I will definitely check out after this. But
okay,
yeah.
So there are a lot of ethnographies that have been published on gaming spaces. So I don't remember her name, but I will do a post on my threads and also on my Medium account. There's an ethnography for World of Warcraft. There's someone else wrote an ethnography for the Korean online gaming community, which is crazy.
I know someone who might like that. Yeah, okay.
And it's all like the economics of the Korean online gaming community and like how that entire thing thrives. And if you really look at it, like Asian communities have really embraced it, and you can shower at gaming places. They have rooms you can rent to take naps.
Okay.
Like all kinds of stuff. But people don't really realize how much of an impact gaming has on worldwide culture. And in America, people are like, it's for kids, and then esports.
Yeah, esports.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I will make a list. I will put an article up. I'm currently working on an article about the economic system in the Fallout game that relies on bottle caps.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I remember that. It's great. And it's a great system, by the way.
Yeah. And I do have plans for another podcast about...
Yeah, because I forgot to mention that you did host a podcast. So what was it called? Was it the game, the...
Anthropology
of gaming? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to start another one called Anthropology and Dragons.
Okay.
And it's going to be about TTRPGs.
Great.
And
yeah, okay.
gaming community, all that other stuff.
Okay.
I have to sit down and actually do it.
Yeah, well, that's always the struggle with these things. Okay, well, Kaylee, I will put all of these links in the description of the episode. If you want to send me some after the episode, that will be absolutely amazing. And as last parting words from you, where can people find you? And if they do, what is the best way to support your work?
I have a Patreon. It's called Anthro Riot. Patreon / anthroriot.com.
Okay.
But I'm mostly on Threads as the Gaming Anthropologist. I do have an Instagram as well. You can message me. I do answer people. Just don't be weird about it. I'm happy to work with whoever wants to talk or have a conversation, or this is my life's work, and I'm happy people actually want to listen to want to talk about it.
Well, and I definitely did want to listen to your life's work, and it was such a fascinating episode. Thank you so much, Kaylee, for coming into the show. And well, I'll be following you on Medium for sure, because I'm now curious about all of those articles that you're putting out. So
Thank you.
And that, my beautiful and lovely friends, is a wrap on another special episode of the Indie Diaries podcast, Footnote number 8, with Kaylee, the Gaming Anthropologist. Please follow her by going to the links in the description of the episode. There's plenty to know, especially if you like history, if you like anthropology, and if you want to learn more about where we come from, because, anthropology is pretty much all about that. So, if you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the show, leave a rating, 5 stars, that always helps, and do check out the links to support the show in the description of the episode. You can follow me on social media, send me a hi, we can have a conversation. You can also join the Discord server, where we regularly, and not so regularly sometimes, have lovely conversations about the latest games coming out, and game design, programming, coding, level design, all of those beautiful things. And lastly, if you're an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch, because I would love to tell your story to the world. Until next time, guys, I'll see you in the next Indie Diary.